Welcome everyone to the OADN presentation, Virtual Simulation, no longer a novelty, what's next? First, we want to thank you for joining us today and spending time with us. We know your time is valuable. My name is Rebecca Cockrell, and I'm a member of the OADN Sim Task Force.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hello, everyone. I am Janine Barrett, and I too am a reviewer on the Virtual Simulation Review Task Force, and we're so happy you're here. So this is our agenda for our first hour here. We will present to you some exemplars of simulation so that you'll have the opportunity to see how virtual simulation might happen for various schools of nursing. We have 2 virtual simulations. Then we will do a quick debriefing, which will include some reflection on your part. Then we're going to discuss the history of simulation standards and wrap up our first workshop hour.
But first, let's create a shared mental model. This may be familiar to some of you. This is from Harvard's Center for Medical Simulation. And we want you to reflect on this concept as we do the same. We believe that everyone participating in activities at the 2021 OADN conference are intelligent, capable, and cares about doing their best and wants to improve. So, terminology of virtual simulation. There exist many definitions of virtual simulation, even within the Healthcare Simulation Dictionary from the Society of Simulation in Healthcare. The term is interchangeable with virtual reality, game-based learning, screen-based learning, just to name a few. And now we also have virtual reality simulation, which many understand that to be a 360-degree immersive experience offered through a headset that may or may not have haptic devices. In a very important letter to the editor of Clinical Simulation in Nursing, published in March of 2021, Dr. Cynthia Ferranda, Professor and Assistant Dean for Innovation, Clinical Scholarship, and Research at the University of Miami, suggested the following definition. Virtual simulation is the use of partial immersion through a digital learning environment, for example, computer, tablet, phone, screen, etc., to foster a perceived lived experience for an intended outcome, and this can include learning or entertainment. It is important to note that a rigorous discussion occurring regarding the creation of another new standard about virtual simulation. After reviewing the literature and discussing with multiple stakeholders, including the board of directors, a decision was made that virtual learning was a method of simulation and that the standards would apply just as it would to the other areas of simulation methodology. So this includes mannequin-based, standardized patient, skill performance, online, etc. We recognize that the pandemic and rapidly advancing technology may have a profound effect and change this decision for future iterations of the standards. That was a very important piece of communication that came out right in the midst of the pandemic when we as nurse educators were struggling to meet the needs of our students, and it supports the use of virtual simulation. So for a few moments, we want to ask you to join us through some examples of some virtual simulation experiences. We want you to think about what went well, what could be changed for next time, and what you might use as a takeaway for your practice related to virtual simulation.
Hello. My unit is closed. Well, it's almost time. I was getting ready to go out the door. I just had my breakfast. And I have to do what? A virtual clinical. Okay. Bye. So this is going to be really fun. Okay. Breathe. What's virtual? VSTEM. Somebody mentioned that in program meeting. I remember. I think it was Joetta Chanley that mentioned that. I'm old. I don't know what it is, but they can do it, I think. Okay, so I have to do a virtual clinical. Few little instructions. Do the VSTEM. Oh yeah, that's right. We have to meet. Zoom link at 4. We have to meet and talk about it, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. And we're gonna meet on Zoom. How's that gonna work? They have their instructions. They can do their VSTEM. I'm gonna take a nap.
Well, good afternoon. How are you guys? Nobody wants to talk to me? Okay, well, I think we're supposed to do something. You all were supposed to do like a virtual clinical. Ooh, Ken, that looks good. What are you eating?
Sun chips,
Are that what flavor?
garden salsa.
Oh, have you had these before?
Yes, I love those.
So hang on for just a second. They're saying they brought pizza into my house. I'll be right back.
And
Okay. So anyway, y'all were supposed to do something on the computer that dealt with the replacement of the regular clinicals, and you had some instructions on what to do.
I didn't see any instructions.
Yes, ma'am. They were posted that you were supposed to what VSTEM you were supposed to complete, and that it was also on the same announcement that had the Zoom link for us to talk this afternoon.
Well, I didn't even. Well, I'm up at my sister's office right now, and I don't have internet at home. I mean, it's like we live out in the middle of nowhere, and it comes and goes. What am I supposed to do?
Well, I guess that's something that you'll have to take up with the director, because I have no idea what kind of, specifics that the computer has to have or anything like that. Or
Am I the only one that couldn't get in? I couldn't get in. Am I really the only one that couldn't get in? I'm having a real hard time believing that.
I did mine at Starbucks, so I don't know. You might try that.
like I said, I'll have to get with my director, because they're the ones that'll have to get in touch with the company to see if you have access or not. So
Let me call you back.
Can you tell us what's going to be on our next test, Ms. Grimes? I'm really worried about that.
no, I have no idea.
Can't you give us like a hint? Like
The only hint I can give you is to study. And if you paid attention in class, I think you'll be fine. Hang on, I got to get a bite of pizza. I'm sorry. I can't hear you, Miss Cockrell. You've got your mic muted.
I'll try to.
What about you, Ken? Are you pretty smart with computers? Okay. Well, so you said it was pretty intense, that VSTEM?
Yeah.
Miss Cockrell, you're unmuted now.
yeah. Are we done yet?
Not quite, I don't think. Was that Mr. Shapiro?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay. I haven't watched the case. I really couldn't tell you. So this virtual stuff, I'm an old lady and I'm just not really familiar with the computer stuff. So that's why I can't help Miss Cockrell. Do y'all know if the other groups have already did their little meeting. I think that a specific word they call it, but have they had their meeting? Do you know if the other students have? Y'all don't talk to any of the other students?
Huh.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Well, y'all don't have any questions?
I'm good.
Well, nobody else is talking, so I guess we're all done.
So let's start off with a discussion. Think about how you feel after watching that. Can anyone relate to that experience? Was that very familiar to some of you? So the transition to online clinical experiences was a very rapid pivot. And some of us were prepared, and some of us, very much like the clinical instructor, it was a new challenge. So think about what went well. So let's talk about what you really want to talk about. What could be different next time? And how did the clinical instructor's behavior impact learning outcomes? Did learning occur? Does anyone have thoughts or suggestions about what could be different next time? So now let's take a look at a different exemplar that may share some insights into a better way of handling a virtual simulation experience.
Oh, who's that? Oh, it's my boss. Whew, that's never good. Hello? Virtual clinical? For how long? Oh, well, that's a great opportunity though. It'll give us a good chance to use our cases that we have from Montgomery College or the ACE cases that we have. We've got plenty of stuff to use. Like, this would be a great time. We've already been orientated to the modules and everything. Oh, we could definitely make that work. Yeah, we've been preparing for that the whole semester, basically. Oh, okay, thanks. Well, yeah, no problem. We can get that done. I'll let the students know as soon as possible the whole plan with a layout for every day. Okay, all right, thank you. Important notice regarding clinical. We have just been notified that we will be attending virtual simulation for the rest of the semester. Guidelines for virtual and clinical. We will have a pre-brief session that lasts approximately 30 minutes via Zoom to discuss our upcoming case and our objectives for each case. Students are required to conduct their simulation during the time allowed before we come together for our group debrief. During that time of Zoom, your camera should be on, you should be in uniform. You should have assessment data collected for your patient and also have your vital signs and be able to talk about and discuss what was wrong with your patient and the care of your patient for that day. The time will be determined based off of our objectives. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. Thank you for your attention during this virtual clinical time. Send.
Okay, so welcome to our debriefing session for Mr. Carl Shapiro, who y'all completed the virtual simulation on this morning. Can you tell me like how you're feeling after completing your virtual simulation?
Well, how am I feeling? I guess relieved to get that experience behind me.
You think that when you encounter that again in real life, that will, resonate with you? Anyone else like to share their experience today? Let's talk about what happened in our simulation. Okay, so here's our patient. We're introducing our patient here, Mr. Shapiro. So tell me what things that you learned from when you first enter the room and what you're supposed to do.
Well, I mean, just reflecting back on, what we've discussed in lecture, just the importance of, introducing yourself to the patient, and then just that kind of that visual assessment of what's going on with the patient in addition to what they're saying, just kind of taking those visual cues of what's going on.
Okay, very good. Thanks for sharing. So when y'all entered the room and you introduced yourself and you washed your hands, what are some potential things that you thought could be wrong with Mr. Shapiro? When we are entering the room and Mr. Shapiro has his diagnosis of myocardial infarction, what priority nursing assessments do you think we should do?
So I saw the nasal cannula and I thought respiratory.
Kim, would you like to add anything? Or Linda, would you like to add anything?
The patient's chest is not moving.
Did any of you witness this same thing happening when you were doing the scenario? The patient's chest not moving?
Yeah, and I freaked out.
Well, tell me, if you were back in the room right now as a nurse, now that you've had some exposure, what would you do after you walked in the patient's room and the patient was not breathing? Where would you start? Okay, so those are some very good points that we've made today. Now let's take a look at our objectives right quick. What have we learned from this that we're going to take from the simulation and we're going to apply it in our life as a nurse? So when we're out there on the floor working, what things are we going to take from this situation? Just as a reminder, I know it was in your announcement, but I will be sending out a survey so that we can reflect on this assignment to see, what things about it that you liked and what went well, and just follow up survey on that. So please do that for us. And then you will be having a post assignment, and part of your post assignment is going to be to complete an SBAR for your patient that you cared for today. So make sure that you complete that assignment and get that uploaded to your learning management system, okay? And lastly, Linda, if you don't mind, I'd like to schedule a meeting with you following this debriefing, just so that we can discuss, what happened in debriefing today. So thank you all for your attention and time, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Ms. Chanley. So is anyone feeling a little bit better after watching this example? What went well? Can anyone link a behavior or an example of something the clinical instructor did that links back to the standards of best practice? Do you see evidence of a pre-briefing? Was there a discussion of the objectives? Can you detect a framework of debriefing that the instructor used? Was there a plan for evaluation? Do you have any suggestions for this instructor for next time? Does anyone have an aha or a takeaway, something that they could use from this example in their own virtual simulation practice?
So why do we need standards? Just like we have standards of best practice or evidence-based practice in nursing and in healthcare, simulation also has standards that ensure the best possible use of simulation that creates the best possible student outcomes. In the two exemplar virtual simulations that we watched, you can see how simulation can be used in a wide variety of ways. The NCSB National Simulation Study found that up to 50% of clinical can be replaced with simulation, but emphasized that that simulation must be based on the standards of best practice. The resulting NCSB and simulation guidelines emphasize that the standards of best practice ensure quality, rigorous simulation experiences. The standards provide the foundation for simulation across all settings and all modalities. The standards advance the science of simulation, as well as establish best practices. The standards are particularly helpful for our adjunct faculty or new simulationists who have not yet reached expert level in simulation or in nursing education. They help to ensure simulation experiences are in alignment with the best available evidence. Adopting the healthcare simulation standards of best practice shows that you're committed to providing rigorous, high-quality simulated experiences that use best practices and ultimately improve patient care. The healthcare simulation standards of best practice guide the integration of use and advancement of simulation in education, practice, as well as research. A little bit about where the standards started and where we are today in 2021. In 2009, a roundtable discussion of the NCLEX Board of Directors identified the need to have best practices for nursing simulation. The group began the process with their knowledge and expertise, along with literature reviews and input from NCLEX members. The first edition of the NCLEX Standards of Best Practice were presented at the 2010 NCLEX conference and published in 2011 with the first 7 standards. As a living document, the standards continue to evolve along with the evidence and simulation practice. In 2013, the second edition of the NCLEX standards were published. The standards continued to be reviewed and feedback was received. In 2015, 2 additional standards were added, and in 2017, the third edition of the NCLEX standards were published, which brings us to present time. 2 additional areas of expertise were added to the standards of best practice, and the standards were re-released with the name Healthcare Simulation Standards of Best Practice. This change in the name is important because it better represents the position of the standards within the field of healthcare simulation. Again, as a living document, the standards will continue to evolve as simulation and our knowledge base evolves. This iteration of the standards includes these areas of expertise, including professional development, which is new in this set of standards, and pre-briefing is also new in the set of standards. Continuing and improved are simulation design, facilitation, the debriefing process, operations, outcomes and objectives, professional integrity, simulation enhanced IPE, and evaluation of learning and performance. Thank you so much for listening to our session today. Rebecca and I are very glad that you're here, and we hope that you join the rest of the sessions that will be coming up.